Hello plebs, welcome to Dead by Discussion, where we discuss all things Dead by Daylight. Okay, so my last 12 hours have been 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever the fuck long it's been. It's been spent doing a lot of fucking math, because I'm trying to fucking do all these fucking perks. I guess this is how I'm gonna do my perk tier list, I suppose. But one thing that I'm going to just stomp in the head. At least that's what I'm trying to do. I always love how you see fucking perk tier lists out there that make sure they go ahead and separate killer and survivor perks. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna make sure to not do that. And again, the way I found is through these formulas that I've developed. I believe you can directly compare killer and survivor perks, and I think that's an important thing to do when you're talking about this fucking game, because it goes to show you just how much stronger the survivor perks actually are in this fucking game. Even the best killer perks, they only get near the level of these consistent survivor perks, and don't like fucking do much else. That's all they can do is get near it. They're mostly dwarfed by it, and I think it's interesting to see that. And again, how are we directly comparing them? Well, I have added a few things because I was watching my last video back, and I'm like, there's something missing from my formula, because I think one thing I want to get clear here is I'm not just like, I don't know how to exactly phrase this. Like, I have my opinions first. Like, I'm trying to, like, I guess, put my opinions into math. I'm trying to, like, find a way to I guess because this can be quantified. Trying to quantify my opinions and put them into numbers. And one thing that I saw that was inconsistent was the fact that on the scale that I had in the last video was that Dead Hard and Pre-Patch Medal of Man were both a perfect 9, which is inaccurate. And I know that's totally inaccurate, because Pre-Patch Medal of Man absolutely couldn't stay in the game the way that it was. And Dead Hard, I believe, can stay in the game the way that it is right now. So obviously there was something missing from my math. So I was thinking about it, like, what could that possibly be? Why is Dead Hard not as good as Pre-Patch Medal of Man? Why was Pre-Patch Medal of Man not healthy for this fucking game? Well, that goes into the drawback. And so I decided to add a section for drawback. The worse your drawback is, the lower your number is. And so that is what pushed it over the scale. And I also found a way to quantify the tiers, okay? Bad perks on a scale, I believe, goes from 0 to 4.9. And that was originally something I had a bit higher, but I decided to make it 4.9 because, like, you're not a mid-tier perk if you can't beat a 5 out of 10 perk. If you're anywhere below a 5 out of 10, you can't be mid-tier by definition, because that's middle of the pack. Anything lower than that has to be a bad perk. Makes sense to me, right? Again, you could give or take whatever. Like, there's arguments to be had. This is how I see it. If you want to be a mid-tier, you have to actually be mid. Like, you have to be over the hump. So yeah, bad perks. The bad ones, you'll generally find that they fall between 0 and 4.9. And then mid-tier perks 5.0 to 6.9. High tier from 7 to 8. Top tier perks are from 8.1 to 8.9. And what I mean by that, I mean healthy perks. 8.1 to 8.9. Once you hit 9 to 10, you start hitting an unhealthy level that needs to be taken out of the game. If a perk is a 9 out of 10, it can't stay in the game. It needs to go. So, like, that's my reasoning. That, like, okay, if I'm finding numbers here, if I'm doing numbers that find that a perk can't stay in the game, but it can, I go back to my numbers and think, okay, what did I get wrong? Because, like, again, Dead Hard shouldn't be scoring a 9 because I believe Dead Hard can stay in the game. So Dead Hard's not broken. So I must be overlooking a few things when I go back and do my numbers. And again, I'll just reiterate how I'm getting these numbers. What I mean by out of 10s, I mean averages. Well, we're taking the average. We're giving every perk a score out of 10 in 5 different categories and then taking the average. And if that perk is anywhere above a 9, it can't stay in the game. Broken. So that's what we're doing. And our categories are, again, an activation condition, the effect, the priority of that effect. What effect is it? Like for survivors, juking the killer is a 10. It's a 10 out of 10 effect. And again, some perks break the rules a little bit, and we'll talk about those. Like, just because a perk is meant for juking the killer, it doesn't mean it scores a 10 in that category. Because that's how you start to see inaccurate stuff. The counterplay to the perk. So, like, if the perk has, like, no counterplay, it would score a 10. And the perk has tons of counterplay, it scores a bad scoring in that category. And then the category I added, the drawback, it's like the worse your drawback is, the lower your number is. And let's talk about drawbacks, because this is the new category that I just came up with. Drawback doesn't necessarily mean what's written on the perk. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Because if you're running a perk like Plunderer's Instinct, like if you're running, like, let's say you're a survivor, you're running Dead Hard, Defensive Strike, I don't know, Self-Care, and fucking Plunderer's Instinct, you are not running a perk like, I don't know, what's another good perk? Adrenaline. And that drawback could potentially come back to hurt you, the fact that you didn't have adrenaline, because instead you had on a fucking subtar perk like Plunderer's Instinct. I believe that perks can have a drawback, even if a drawback isn't stated on the perk itself. If you are going outside, if the perk, but like, if that's the drawback, like, if a perk's effect is bad, the drawback is you have that effect over a different effect that's actually fucking good. So you see the problem here. That's how drawbacks can also come into haunt perks outside of their descriptions. At least, again, this is all in my mind. This is my subjective opinion. Like, a perk can have a drawback, even if it's not listed there. But the drawback is the perk is bad. The drawback is you have a perk slot, because the drawback is you have 4 perk slots and you decided to fill one of them with Plunderer's Instinct. That's the drawback. You can farm items, but you can't get that speed boost at the end of the game. That's the drawback. Don't really want to reiterate that more than I have to. My list is very clunky because what I did was I just copied and pasted them all from the DBD page. My document's like 100 pages now. So once I do all the math, I plan to get them in different spots and actually make a list, and then I want to post that list in the description. Just make a public document that has all my listings on it. And so, like, because I added drawback, a lot of perks went down. Like, Balanced Landing, I believe, was like a 9.3 last time. I added a drawback of 5, and then I incorporated its nerf into the fact I dropped some of its numbers, and now it has an 8.1. So, like, as you can see, the nerf, and then adjusting for the nerf, and then adding the drawback category, dropped it to an 8.1, a top tier perk, but also is a healthy top tier perk that can now stay in the game. You see what you see what I'm saying here. The next thing we need to talk about is hex totems and hex perks, because I did change how I do those a little bit. I haven't done them all yet, but like the thing that's interesting about hex perks is that you get different like uses out of them every single match. So it's very hard to quantify just how good a hex totem is. So what I decided to do was just do all 3. What happened, like, how good is your hex perk if it gets cleansed in the first 2 seconds versus how good is it if you get like maybe 4 minutes out of it, and then how good is it if it lasts the whole match. So for Hex Ruin, we'll look at those numbers first. So for Hex Ruin, the activation condition 10, effect 10, priority of the effect 10. So that's a perfect score. But then we get to the counterplay. This is something that's different about Ruin versus a perk like Noed, which we'll go over in a second. Hex Ruin always has a counterplay of 2, because as soon as the game starts, all 4 survivors are present, which is when Hex Ruin is active. So Hex Ruin will always have that 2 out of 10 in counterplay because you have the chance to get rid of it in 10 seconds. It's a very good perk, but it's by no means devoid of any weakness with how much it gets cleansed, especially when you start memorizing the fucking totem spots. That's when it starts to get really bad. And then, this is a True Talent asked this question with one of his videos. Is it still Hex Ruin if you never miss a skill check? All it does is not give you a grade. It doesn't give you a boost. Is it still Hex Ruin once you get good at hitting those skill checks? So there's a lot of problems with Hex Ruin, as I've stated before. Killers hate it just as much as survivors do, trust me. So, like, if Hex Ruin gets cleansed in the first 10 seconds of the match, I gave that fucking drawback a 0. Because you just wasted your perk slot. That's the ultimate drawback. The ultimate drawback is you wasted your perk slot. 0. If Hex Ruin dies in 10 seconds, you wasted your perk slot, and it's a dead 0. 5 being it lasts an average amount of time, and then 10. I ran all 3 of those numbers through. So, 10, 10, 10. So, like, the highest the Hex Ruin could possibly give you is a 10, 10, 10, 10, 2. Which is an 8.4. So, like, even if Hex Ruin lasts the entire match, it's not a broken perk. Because the fact that you can get rid of it, and the fact that if you have the opportunity to get rid of it, means that this perk is not broken. That's the thing about Hex Totems. Because they have that huge counterplay, and potentially that huge drawback too, that means they'll never be broken. They can be as strong as they want. That's why Noah doesn't need nerf. The fact that it's a Hex Totem means it can be as strong as you want it to be. So 8.4, and then just like by nature of how math works, that would mean the 5, giving its drawback a 5 means it's 7.4, and giving its drawback a 0 means it's 6.4. So Hex Ruin could potentially be just over mid-tier. Potentially. The fact that its effect is so good means it'll never be a bad perk. Like, people have to go look for it. But, like, so it's never going to be a trash tier perk. But, like, as you, like, it barely gets into mid-tier. If it's cleansed in the first 10 seconds. And then Devour Hope I ran through too. I re-ran through, I should say, because I thought that in my last section the numbers were very low. Like, I believe Devour Hope scored less than Plunder's Instinct on my last rating, so I knew something was off. So again, if Devour Hope gets cleansed, and then the Devour Hope's another interesting case because the amount of counterplay that it has also goes up or down depending on what tier of Devour Hope you're at. So if Devour Hope gets cleansed in like the first 10 seconds, your drawback is 0, and then your counterplay would be I set a 3. Because honestly, I'm looking at that again. That's not Devour Hope. That would be even worse because I'm looking at that, yeah, because that's even worse, because it doesn't, I gave Hex Ruin's counterplay a fucking, what, a 2? And Devour Hope doesn't do anything at the beginning of the game, so yeah, that's not right. I'm gonna flip that, give that a 1, and I gotta redo this. But I'm gonna keep it, I'm not gonna change any other number, because I believe I want Devour Hope's numbers to be consistent with Noed. Which Noed's counterplay can stay at 3, but yeah, I believe the last 2 numbers are accurate. So let's see here. At Devour Hope's activation condition, I decided to bump it up from 0 to 0.3 because since I gave since hooking 1 survivor is a 1, I just divided that by 3 to spread it out. So it's a 0.3 plus 10 for effect, because if you get it off, it's really fucking good. 4 for priority, and then 1 plus 0 divided by 5 is a 3.06. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Why is my computer stupid? So, like, but if you start getting it off, it can go all the way up to a 6.26 out of 10. You see how that works. Because Devour Hope is an insanely good perk once you get it off, but the fact is that if somebody's getting off Devour Hope, you had the chance to stop it. So it can be as broken as you want it to be. So that's kind of the scale I did. And also, I also found it interesting that NOED was actually nerfed when I actually ran the numbers through. But except for the last incarnation of it was buffed. But the other two incarnations were actually nerfs: 5.4, 6.8, and 8.2. So as you can see, like none of these killer perks are getting above a 9 because they all don't need to be changed. But I'm sure that's what's going to happen because of what survivors do. I think we'll see a NOED nerf within the next year. That's my prediction. I don't think NOED's going to stay in the game. I think it's going to get nerfed. Because, like, the Nurse and Spirit Nurse taught me not to ever think anything's going to last. I know it's going to get nerfed within the next year, mark my words. So yeah, I haven't ran everything through. But I reran pre-patch D-Strike and pre-patch Medal of Man through with these new conditions. Pre-patch Decisive Strike went up to 9.8. It was a buff when I added its drawback. Because what's the drawback for a fucking successful Decisive Strike? No, don't give me that. You can miss the skill check, and then the drawback is a fucking 0. If you miss the skill check, you're bad. The perk's not. I hate it. I hate it when people say that. You can always miss the skill check. No, that means you're bad. The perk's fine. The drawback for a successful pre-patch Decisive Strike was 10. And then I gave pre-patch Decisive Strike's activation condition a 10 as well, because the way pre-patch D-Strike worked was that it wasn't like it is now. Like, I was thinking about it, and it was like, well, you could argue that because you have to get down to make the Decisive Strike go off, its activation condition should be lower, because getting down is never a thing that survivors want to do. Let me explain something to you. The way that pre-patch Decisive Strike worked, it was a kiting tool. It wasn't like it could save you if you get down. No, it was just a kiting tool. It was a kiting tool that added to your kite times without any fucking additional drawback. You weren't exhausted. Like, it had nothing to do with that. Like, that would have been an okay nerf for D-Strike. No, it wouldn't have. Okay. Well, it would have been an okay nerf because then you wouldn't be able to combine Decisive Strike with exhaustion perks. If you want to use Decisive Strike, you're exhausted, or if you're exhausted, you cannot use Decisive Strike. That's an interesting thing that they could have given to it. But yeah, 9.8 out of 10, the best perk in Dead by Daylight history. 9.8 out of 10. Absolutely couldn't stay in the game. It was crazy good, and they were right to get rid of it. And then the only other perk to hit 9 on my scale was pre-patch Medal of Man, which made more sense, because Dead Hard, I believe, got knocked down to 8.2 after I factored the drawback in. The activation condition for Medal of Man was 8, the effect is a 10, the priority is a 10. The counterplay for pre-patch Medal of Man was an 8, and then the drawback, the Medal Man's drawback was a joke. Nobody used it. You couldn't heal yourself unless the killer would see your aura. Which again, seeing your aura is only half the battle. They still have to actually down you. And even then, most ashes wouldn't. Most people that were running pre-patch Medal of Man wouldn't actually heal themselves. So you wouldn't even get that one tiny benefit of it. And again, most people were running Dead Hard, so it was still a 2-hit. People that did that also ran Dead Hard, so it was, even when they stayed injured, they were 2 hit points away from actually going down, if they were at the right loop and the right. So like, yeah, the drawback was a joke. Its drawback was 9, and it was the only other perk I ran through the numbers to actually break 9 and then by definition on the scale here, need a nerf. But honestly, Medal of Man might see an interesting resurgence in play with what they're doing to protection hits now, and how they're actually trying to make those a bit more consistent. And so it's interesting to see what they're gonna, if that perk sees any kind of resurgence in usage. I certainly fucking hope not, but it'll be interesting to see. It's still gonna be bad because I ran fucking post-patch Medal of Man through. I hit that on my scale. Post-patch Medal of Man is not good, as we all know. Medal of Man, here it is. Medal of Man, activation condition as it currently is a 1. Its effect is a 10, and its priority is a 10. The counterplay is a 1, and the drawback is now a 1. The drawback being its activation condition, more than anything else now. And the fact that since you're running Medal of Man, you're not going to get any use out of it. Except in this match I'm showing to you right now, I actually got the piece of shit off. Oh, that was fucking great, dude. That was one of my favorite matches I've ever played as Survivors. Just to stick it to you guys. I see. If a killer main can do it, you can do it. I ran life through the life scored 8.2, and it's just like, you know, I'm not gonna go through and bore everybody with like what I ran through on every single perk that I've actually run so far. Decisive Strike, the new D-Strike. I gave its activation condition a 4 because, like, again, now the whole getting down thing is a bit worse. Its effect is still a 10, and its effect priority of not getting tunneled, because that's what it is now. Instead of a kiting tool, it's now a stop from tunneling. That's still 10. Counterplay is a 5 now. Definitely a lot more counterplay to it than there is before. The reason why it's not lower is the fact that it now gives everybody a benefit. Like, if the killer's, even if the killer's, like, still tunneling, they might not pick you up if you have Decisive Strike. So I couldn't ignore that aspect, that it's one of those perks that now gives everybody a benefit. And its drawback, it's an 8, because again, it the same thing for counterplay. It does give everybody a benefit. So you can't say, like, even if I wasn't running Decisive Strike, like, Decisive Strike could still help you even if you're not running it. It's one of those perks now. And the final score was a 7.4. Definitely a much healthier perk. And also, like, the thing about Decisive Strike now is it's there to rectify a situation that you really shouldn't find yourself in. Well, that's a bad choice of words. Like, it's there to correct. It has a specific function it's there to do now. It's not just it does everything, like it did before. Like, that's when it was really fucking retarded. Oh, Object of Obsession. I know everyone knows I'm a big proponent of that. I ran Object. I actually got to Object of Obsession and ran that through the numbers as well. This is what I think is interesting here. Object of Obsession scored a 10 for activation condition. Makes sense. You don't have to do anything to set it up. Just look in the killer's direction and you get to see his aura. He sees yours. That's insanely beneficial for you. So, like, the activation condition is just looking in the killer's direction. That's all it is. That's a 10. That's really easy to do. Effect 10. Seeing the killer's aura is a game-breaking mechanic, and like the priority of effect is also a 10, because especially if you're on SWF, you can literally coordinate the plays of the entire team just because you have it. The counterplay, very limited. Stealth. This is what the nerfs factored in. There are Ghostface and Wraith and all the Oblivious stuff can kind of deal with it. Kind of. If the way it works is if you are seeing the killer's aura when you become Oblivious, it doesn't apply. And then the drawback is 8. It only fucking counts. The drawbacks only start mattering when your team is losing. And by then you probably would have lost anyway. There you go, boys. Get that stack on Medal of Man right there. And Object's final score ended up being a 9.2. The post quote unquote nerf the nerf with the quote unquote nerfs that it got, 9.2. As you can see, that was fucking better than pre-patch Medal of Man. I forgot about Object when I said that those were the only 2 perks to break past 9. I forgot about Object. The thing about Object is it's just such a broken perk, you can't really fix it unless you give it a total rework, which I recommend that they do, because again, perks over 9 shouldn't stay in the game. I'm gonna be salty if they nerf it, because it's what I run as a survivor. But I don't run it to be toxic. I run it to show people that it's an issue. That's why I play Survivor, ladies and gentlemen. I run stuff as a survivor to let people know that it's an issue. I'm not toxic, I swear. I only run purple flashlights to show developers they're a problem. I'm not toxic. But like, and again, I think all this just goes to show one thing. When you are making perks, it is a good idea to make sure that these numbers are balanced to some way, shape, or form, because these numbers need to have a string of highs and a string of lows, at least. And like again, so obviously, when behavior wants to make a meta perk, obviously, like all the numbers are relatively decent, but like the fucking numbers are always relatively decent in all the categories. There you go, boys. Got Medal of Mana. And now see, now that all the drawbacks to Medal of Mana are gone, I now have a perk with a 10 effect. So I can do plays now that I've earned through my working with the garbage activation condition. See, now that I've earned Medal of Man, any play that I would decide to do, which, I mean, I do use Medal of Man, I use it selfishly, but I do use it. Any play that you would pull off with the perk is like fucking warranted because of what I did during the match. And so again, activation condition, effect, priority of effect, counterplay, and drawback. It's always good to have safe. It's always good to have a safe balance of these numbers. And again, you can make a meta perk, just make sure you don't get too stupid with it, because when a lot of these fucking meta perks out there, they just make sure that it's gonna be broken. And I think that they got really close with Inner Strength. Inner Strength is like teetering on being broken. And I have the numbers right here. Activation condition 5, effect 9, priority of effect 10, counterplay 10, drawback 10. Because there just ain't no fucking drawback to Inner Strength. Like, Inner Strength is a perk that, like, they really needed to be careful with it, and I voiced concerns about it before it was released. And granted, the perk hasn't done anything too stupid since it's come out, but like, boy, did they teeter. They really teetered on like stupid and not stupid. They really were dumb. And like, I respect it. They really walked the damn line between broken and not broken. And granted, according to my charts here, they came out on the right side to where like this perk is fucking as good as it could possibly be without fucking needing to go away. Like, I seriously believe if you don't think Inner Strength is on the verge of being broken, you're stupid. I really think that. And that's like, which is insane, because like a lot of discussion about Inner Strength or the fact that it's a fucking meme. How is Inner Strength a meme? Do you know how much time it can save you? Because again, we're going off the assumption that you should be doing the totems anyway. The totems should be done anyway. And so, because they should be done anyway, any benefits you would get from Inner Strength being that like you just need to like heal, you could save, if you instead of self-care, save if you run self-care instead of a medkit, that's 32 seconds, and if you heal with Inner Strength, that's an 8-second heal. And so like 8 times 4 is 32, right? Yeah. So you are saving literally fucking 24 seconds off of Inner Strength. How is that a meme? Like, I'm so confused about why that's a meme. Like, but again, I'm not saying it's broken, because according to my charts, it's like on the edge, which is what I said. I said I was worried, but now that it's here, it's just, it can stay, I guess. I haven't seen anything too retarded with it, so it's fine. And if I'm seeing retarded plays, I'm certainly not noticing them. That's the thing I hate about Inner Strength more than anything else, is that it's very hard to like quantify it, because like you don't, as a killer, you're not seeing it very much. You're feeling you might be feeling its effects, but you don't even know if you're feeling its effects. But you know, I digress. That's a video for a different day. That's my perk scale, and I'll link it when I'm done with all the perks in the comments, and I encourage you to make your own. And again, behavior, please follow this fucking formula or something like it, please.